Coming up on episode 72 of Omnivore, how open source innovation is making food traceability faster, cheaper, and easier to scale, and what the latest food service trends reveal about authenticity, nostalgia, and the future of flavor. This is Omnivore, from the editors of Food Technology Magazine and the Institute of Food Technologists.
This episode of Omnivore is sponsored by CoDeveloper from IFT. CoDeveloper is the first AI-powered co-scientist built by food scientists for food scientists and leverages IFT's 85-plus years of scientific excellence, accelerating your R&D processes and helping solve your toughest challenges. Learn more and book your free demo at codeveloper.ift.org.
Welcome to Omnivore from IFT and Food Technology, where we explore the intersection of business, science, and technology in the global food system. I'm Bill McDowell. Food traceability has advanced dramatically over the past decade, yet one persistent obstacle remains: interoperability, getting different systems to communicate seamlessly. This is where a new open-source innovation from IFT's Global Food Traceability Center could mark a turning point. The Traceability Driver automates how traceability data are converted and shared, helping companies streamline compliance and strengthen transparency from farm to fork, all while maintaining control over their data. Food Technology's Julie Larson-Brisher spoke with Blake Harris, Managing Director of the Center, about how the Traceability Driver came to life, what makes it different, and why open source solutions like this could be a game changer for food safety.
Hi, Blake. Welcome to the Omnivore podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, let's dive right in. I think we have a lot to talk about today. So, where are we at with traceability approaches and systems? Can you give us a 15,000-foot perspective?
Yeah, it's really, food systems are global systems, and the pressures on the industry today around traceability truly are global. Everything from an increase in regulations with traceability-specific attributes. A lot of people in the U.S. are familiar with Food Safety Modernization Act Section 204, but there's also regulations in the EU, in Australia and Indonesia, in Canada, right? It's Chile. It's a global thing that really regulatory agencies are starting to look at from the perspective of food safety and also other use cases. And also industry commitments from major brands and retailers, everything from, deforestation-free supply chains to carbon accounting, to fair labor practices in these supply chains. All of these sorts of things really foundationally need traceability in order to increase the assurance that what these commitments and regulations are required to look at are being compliant in their supply chains. There's a lot of pressure to coordinate between supply chain partners, between different commodities that are sold by distributors and retailers, and that's really the space that we work in. How can we support through standardized approaches and frameworks to get alignment with these regulations, with these commitments, with these certifications, to really follow traceability in the same way so that everybody can have access to the data that they need depending on what that use case is?
Well, I know that GFTC does a lot of work with the seafood industry. So can you give me some examples of that? Because that is an area that's real hot on sustainability, has been a leader, a pioneering sector of the industry, if you ask me. But how is something like that? Where are we going with that?
Yeah, ultimately, where we're trying to go with traceability is not just digital, but also interoperable. A lot of times people think, if I digitize this data, then I can share it with whoever I want. But if there's not really guidelines set up around what that data is that needs to be digitized in the first place, and then how that data is going to be shared between systems, you quickly run into a situation where you just have a bunch of silos of digital data. So the things that we're working on in the seafood space, and specifically with the Global Dialogue on Seafood Traceability, which is an initiative that IFT and WWF, the World Wildlife Fund, originally co-convened back in 2017. It's now its own organization that we continue to support. But it's really all in service of trying to move the needle towards that interoperable digital traceability in that space. And that's really where the idea for this traceability driver that we just issued a press release came about. So we work really across the globe in helping to implement that standard. We work with regulatory authorities, we work with certification, we work with industry, and we also work with industry supporting technology providers. And one of the things that we were seeing, which can get pretty complicated, is the technology solution providers. There's all these creative solutions that are being developed, in Indonesia, in Chile, and in Ecuador, throughout the EU and the US. But a lot of them are being developed for like a very specific use cases, maybe regionally, maybe for a specific species. And so a lot of thought goes into how is that user going to interact with this tool? And maybe less so of how is the data in this tool going to be shared with the rest of the supply chain, right? And that's where data standards come into play. So oftentimes we would start to work with these smaller, medium-sized operations, and we would have to start from scratch educating them on data standards, because you have to standardize that data in order to be able to share it interoperably. This is not necessarily the most easy task, right? Not everyone is a data standards expert. And so we were trying to figure out a way to essentially put our knowledge of data standards and the GDST in a tool that we could just hand over and make it really simple for folks. So, the traceability driver is essentially just a separate database that if you are a solution provider working in one of these spaces, you can pull down. It's open source. So you pull it down and you stand it up for free, right? It's open source in your environment. So you maintain control of the data as well. And essentially, if you've got your data in a database already, you can map it to the data that is required by the standard. And the traceability driver will automatically reformat that data into the correct data format. And it's also got a pre-built API, so how that data is shared between two software systems, that follows the GDST's communication protocol standard. So you configure that to share your data with whomever you want to share your data with. And now essentially all you've had to do is plug and play with this traceability driver of, I'm already collecting this data, I just don't have it in the right format, and I don't really have it in the right, I'm not sharing it using the right communications protocol. Well, those last two steps are what this traceability driver is meant to minimize, right? So now you can set this up, you can share it with other folks in your supply chain that are also following these standards, and it significantly reduces the amount of time, effort, and research that you have to do as a software solution provider in order to implement these data standards.
Wow, that is something. I was reading through the materials on where the open source traceability driver is on the website. And you guys do this great job of using a beta test with a company, I think it's called Cultiva. And that beta test showed a 60% reduction in development time, which is super impressive. So what does that tell us about the potential for open source scalable solutions like this to speed up compliance and innovation on, like you say, a global scale?
Yeah, that was a really exciting outcome to the case study. We had pretty high expectations for reducing the level of effort, and really Cultiva telling us that it reduced the amount of time they thought they were going to have to spend on it by 60%, validated it and exceeded it as well. In addition to reducing the amount of time, they also mentioned that they ended up not having to hire an additional back-end software developer to fill the capacity gap. So I think this is a really good illustration of what can be achieved when you do focus on using these existing traceability data standards to build towards interoperability. Because now if everybody's taking the same approach of what data it is required to have traceability and how that data needs to be shared back and forth between software systems, then essentially the work can be done one time and then applied broadly, right? It's really interesting, actually. Since we launched the press release, I think within 2 weeks of launching the press release, we had 90 polls on our GitHub repository for this thing. So this shows like significant interest in people wanting to understand what it is, how to use it. And although our case study was in the seafood space, the reality is, as we see the proliferation of basically using the same sort of framework that has been applied in seafood in other commodities, this technology and other technologies like this can be very easily applied to fit those spaces, like in cattle and beef and soy, in dairy, whatever it is, as long as they're using kind of that same standardized approach, right? And so it's really exciting because it significantly reduces the amount of time that a solution provider needs to comply with these standards. It's globally applicable, and it can be developed in essentially a commodity agnostic way, right? So this tool, this is not a silver bullet by any means. And in fact, we've got half a dozen other ideas for open source tools that we could develop and put out to really help build the space out a little bit further. A space we refer to as the interoperability ecosystem, right? Really helping connect the dots between all the data collectors today. So it's a really exciting time. We're really happy with the results of that beta. Our vision is a fully traceable food system enabled by interoperable digital solutions that are accessible to all. And this is another step on that pathway.
Wow. Well, I'm going to hold up the crystal ball question now is, so looking ahead, how do you see tools like the Traceability Driver shaping the future of traceability? Like, not just for compliance, but off mic, we were talking about that there's so much more. You could build more sustainable or transparent and resilient food systems worldwide.
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned these pressures on these supply chains at the top of this, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. And I think that this tool should serve as an example to just show what's possible with coordinating and implementing from a system level perspective these types of standardized traceability frameworks, really the power that's behind them, and also the ability to significantly reduce the system-wide costs. I mentioned that you can do the work once and then it can be applicable everywhere. Well, we didn't build this traceability driver with Cultiva. We built it and then found Cultiva who wanted to implement the standard, right? And we said, hey, try this out. And that's the same thing with, the 90 other folks that have already downloaded it and the 10,000 other software solutions that are out there that are trying to figure this out. I think that moving forward, hopefully this helps those other initiatives, those regulatory authorities really start to understand the power of following these standards, that there's these scalable solutions, tools, resources that can be created from them as the foundation. And then the ability to harmonize, across regulatory authorities, across use cases as well is incredibly important. Because if everybody continues to kind of define traceability in their own way with each one of these initiatives, it's just going to be crushing for the industry to try to keep up with.
Wow. Thanks, Blake. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Blake Harris is Managing Director of IFT's Global Food Traceability Center. To access the Traceability Driver tool and learn more about IFT's work advancing interoperable traceability solutions, visit the resources page at ift.org/GFTC. We'll be back with more Omnivore in a moment. But first, this word from our sponsor.
Meet CoDeveloper, the AI-powered co-scientist from IFT that cuts development time without sacrificing scientific rigor. CoDeveloper delivers science-backed considerations directly into your R&D processes and connects you with nearly a century of peer-reviewed research and published content to help address your biggest challenges. Visit us at codeveloper.ift.org to book a free 30-minute personalized demo and learn more about what CoDeveloper can do for you.
Welcome back to Omnivore. I'm Bill McDowell. In a food world that's overflowing with options, consumers are craving simplicity, authenticity, and experiences that feel more human. That search for connection is reshaping not only restaurant menus, but also how new products are conceived and positioned across the food industry. To unpack the latest signals driving these shifts, Food Technology's Kelly Hensel sat down with two trend watchers, Maeve Webster, president of Menu Matters, and Mike Kostyo, the firm's vice president. Their conversation kicks off a recurring series of check-ins here on Omnivore as we follow how consumer behaviors and cultural trends continue to shape what ends up on our plates and how we experience food itself.
Thank you, Mike and Maeve, for joining me today. I'm so excited to not only have one of you, but both of you. I usually get to see either one of you at a conference presenting, which I really enjoy, but I get both of you all to myself. So I'm very excited. And we just want to spend a little time picking your brains, seeing what's coming down the pipeline for 2026 and what you guys are interested in. So I've wanted to start off by talking about how you guys are so good at spotting those early signals. Whether it's like quiet wellness experiences, playful nostalgia. And I was just wondering if you're seeing any one or two emerging behaviors or ideas that you're seeing on the menu side of things that might really have some impact or pull through for CPG innovation.
Mm.
I know.
Maeve, do you want to start? You want me to start? I can start.
I do think that there is a growing sense of being overwhelmed by everything that's going on, not just on the menu, but in general. I mean, there's a flood of information. It's too much for most people to process. And I think that is bleeding through to menus. I think the menus that we're seeing coming out now certainly are a lot smaller than they used to be. We've obviously seen chains with very large menus begin to pull back on that, both to simplify operations, but also to make it easier for consumers. So I think that is definitely that idea of simplifying, eliminating clutter, eliminating that need for making too many decisions, particularly when you're the grocery store and you're just trying to get through many times, like just get it done. So how do we simplify packaging, communication, simplify the understanding of what the benefits are of how to use the product? I think all of that is something that can pull through from what's going on with menus.
I love that. Mike, anything to add?
Well, I agree with Maeve. And part of that is we did some research around this topic, and this was last year that 1 in 5 consumers told us that they were overwhelmed by the number of the same products that they were seeing at the supermarket. And so 1 in 5, consumers walking into the grocery store immediately before they even get in there feels like they're just seeing the same things over and over again. And so it is, you walk into that, marinara sauce aisle, and it's a wall of, red marinara sauce. Where do you even begin? Like, where's the differences here? And so I think that is why you start to see some of the consumers who are interested in more curated experiences. Obviously, Aldi's doing very well. Trader Joe's is doing very well. And their product mix is, a quarter to half of what the typical grocery store is, because of that overwhelming nature that I think Maeve was talking about. I think the other thing that we're seeing as we head into 2026 is consumers getting tired of the samification in the industry, for lack of a better word. And I mean that across a wide range of kind of experiences. We've been seeing on TikTok and social media a number of consumers talking about the fact that they feel like all of the foods at their local restaurant come from the same distributors, and it's the same exact appetizers over and over. And we saw, in a number of consumers that they saw the same trends over and over. I see hot honey over and over on menus. I see Dubai chocolate over and over. And so I think consumers are looking for differentiated experiences that go above and beyond kind of the things that they see day in and day out.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think that's a really important point that Mike is making. I just got an email today. Well, yeah, of course it's an important point. But I just got an email today from, I can't remember what the group was, but it was a list of award winners in different, these were all CPG, right? CPG award winners. I am not kidding you. And I tell you that probably 50% of the award winners on this list were some kind of Dubai chocolate or some variation on Dubai chocolate. So I have to tell you, I think this issue of samification is actually being promoted by the industry itself, because it's easier to just follow a lot of these trends, jump on it, and think that that's going to lead to success. And I think the industry is doing it to itself. It's not consumers who are demanding Dubai chocolate on literally everything. It's the industry that's chasing it, and the industry needs to take a step back and start really evaluating, what are we offering consumers if we're all offering the exact same thing? Even if it's iterations on a theme, it's still the same theme.
Right. It's like it's seen as low-hanging fruit almost, that they can just capitalize on it, get to market. Yeah. I have been seeing so much Dubai chocolate, and I honestly, no.
Well, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad flavor combination.
Right.
But like Maeve said, does every third product need to be Dubai chocolate? No. And I mean, we're getting to the point where even if you think you're jumping on the trend, so are all of your competitors. By the time you bring it to market, it'll be a sea of other, as we're seeing right now, Dubai chocolate concepts out there. So you're not doing anything to really differentiate yourself. You're not doing anything to showcase to the consumer the value that you're bringing uniquely.
Yeah. It's so interesting. And it seems like, so if they're seeing that as like, we just need to go faster and bring it to market first, or instead slow down and take a step and like rethink, like you were saying, Maeve, everything that what you're offering, what you have to offer. Right?
I think that's the thing. I don't think it's a matter of everybody speeding up their innovation process to jump on the trend first, because they'll all be, it's just the same process. It's just somebody else might move to the front rather than being in the back. I think the industry, both retail and food service, needs to stop thinking of the trend as the solution or the end goal, and start thinking more about what kind of solutions are they offering consumers. What is the experience that's unique to their brand or their venue? How are they going to stand out from all of the competitors? And I mean, retail, even more so than food service, particularly given the state of food service right now. There is an incredible amount of competition in virtually every category is crowded at this point. So you can't stand out if all you're doing is chasing trends, because everybody else is going to be chasing trends. You have to start thinking about what is it that's unique about the experience with our product? What are we offering that is solving a consumer need, is addressing an issue, is appealing to an emotional state? And if they do that, that can be very unique, right? Their solution will always be unique to any other brand solution. A trend is a trend. It's, ube is going to look the same. It doesn't matter if it's in pasta sauce or it's in something else. Ube is ube, right? You're not going to get any differentiation from it.
That's a very good point. And it kind of speaks to you guys. I think you talked about this on either your podcast or in one of your LinkedIn posts, but this obsession with nostalgia seems like kind of one of those things, and it can almost crowd out that transformative innovation. This is kind of exactly your point, right, Maeve? So how do you balance, creating experiences that are completely new, or items that are completely new for people today, while like getting that kind of buzz going by tapping into some of those trends? Or, I mean, I guess it's all individual and relative, right?
Mike, would you like to go first?
Oh, well, I mean, part of it is, the balance, exactly what you talk about. Like, it's not that nostalgia is a bad idea in and of itself. It's that the balance has gotten so out of whack in the past few years, where every third product that's being released is being trotted out because I ate it in the 90s as a millennial, or, those themes. And so I think that the key there is balance. I think in the next few years, we need to go back, and kind of rebalance things and start focusing on the newness, and stop trotting out the exact same flavors and ideas over and over again.
So how do companies, how do manufacturers, how do food service operations find those new ideas? Like, what are some, I mean, obviously what I love most about your LinkedIn post, your Monday Sparks and your Friday 5, is that this idea that inspiration can come from anywhere, right? Like experiences you're having, like Maeve, you're talking about your FedEx packages, like not showing up, like just everything.
My ongoing drama with that.
Right. And getting to like the point of like consumer trust, right? And that's so critical, especially now in today's world, very critical. But like, so how do you, or I guess my question is, how do you build systems or habits that can help you like capture and apply those inspirational moments before they disappear? Like, I know that's a huge question. I'm recognizing that.
I mean, it is hard because it's a ton of information, right? And particularly when you start looking outside of our own industry, which has a ton of information available on it, it's a ton of information, that you're trying to sort through. It is literally just a matter of taking time during the day, setting aside a half hour, an hour, to seek out that information, or to go through newsletters. We all get newsletters in our email box, hundreds of them, it feels like, and taking time to read through them. There are some tools that we use, and Mike, you probably have more tools than I do. In fact, one that I love now is from Mike. I mean, My Mind is great because you don't need to read through the whole thing and then remember it and figure out how to save it. You just pop it into My Mind. You can tag it with a certain kind of notes, so that you can easily find it again. That's a great one. I think, I mean, it's hard. There's a lot. Google searches, like having Google notices, if you're looking for certain types of information, you can get pretty specific. Those kind of Google notices and Google searches that are automatic, they're set up for you, does half the work for you, certainly. Yeah. Like I said, Mike, you probably have more tools than I do.
No, I mean, at this point, we probably use the same ones. But I think it's exactly what Maeve said, is taking the time to do it. I mean, that's always the thing that goes out the window, because it feels to people like the extra thing that's just like a little benefit on top of the work I have to do. And then the work piles up and, I got to get that report out, and it's easy to not look at those newsletters. I think the thing that has kept us on top of it is the fact that we post it on LinkedIn every Friday, and then we do, new menu items and tech solutions and concepts every Monday. And that has kept us, in a weird way, people actually reach out and they're like, I saw you didn't post on Friday. Where is it? And it keeps us, you feel like you have to do it. You have to be, it does. And so, I mean, it's the same, whether it's sticking to a diet or sticking to a budget or sticking to being on top of the industry, having somebody there to keep you accountable helps so much. So even if internally at your company, you're like, every Friday, we need you all to bring 3 ideas that you're seeing, and people know that they have to do that, will give them kind of an excuse and a goal to stay on top of it. Because otherwise, it's the thing that you're going to push off and, just not kind of dedicate the time that you should to.
I'd also say that it's kind of being mindful as well of the fact that trends that can influence food will come from outside, right? So even as you're just going about your day, you don't even have to be consciously thinking, I need to look for these trends. As you're out and about, think about what design is happening, interior design in restaurants and outside of restaurants. What kind of clothing are you seeing showing up in store windows, whether you shop for that kind of clothing or not? What do you hear your friends talking about? What are you seeing on the news? What are you seeing in streaming shows? I mean, just being mindful that when you start noticing those patterns are probably telling you something about what consumers are looking for, what's resonating with them, what's becoming meaningful to them. So I think just being mindful of the fact that that's the case can make you more aware of or looking for those throughputs and those patterns and those tells essentially outside of the food industry.
Yeah, and it made me think of an article that I had read about somewhere, and that's why I need my mind apparently.
Yeah. We all do.
Oh my God,
we
all need help, right? But I read it somewhere, and it wasn't on like TikTok, I swear. That the downtime is, especially in this country, in our culture, is looked at as being kind of like lazy in a way, whereas but allowing yourself that downtime is where those opportunities, right, to get out of your to-do list.
Yeah. I mean, that idea that everything needs to be a side hustle. And when you're doing a hobby, how do you monetize that hobby? Like, I think that's a great example, because a lot of those opportunities of downtime and actually taking time for yourself probably have a food component. So there's probably something that our industry can learn. Is that downtime having a cup of tea? Is it, cooking, is it gardening, things like that. So there's a lot we can learn from exactly those indicators like that.
I had it's the first time I've done this, but I have a 3.5-year-old son. So we carved a pumpkin for the first time this year. And I haven't carved a pumpkin in like 25 years. I don't even know. It's been a long time, but I went to the effort. I'm like, oh, he's watching his like cartoon. I'm going to like roast the pumpkin seeds. And oh my God, that was the most like satisfying experience. And I actually I calmed down and I was like, I just need to do more of that. That's exactly what I need to do.
Yeah, that's a big trend for. Yeah. Oh, go ahead, Maeve.
I was just going to say, you're right. Just allowing your brain to not be cluttered, to get quiet, to relax and chill for a little while can do wonders for your ability to see things clear, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, is letting your mind stop working as hard as it typically does.
Yeah, I was going to say easier said than done, right?
Of course, right, for all of us. Yeah. But making that effort, and at least, even if it's 15 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, can do wonders for your ability to think clear.
And that's a big theme for us for 2026, is giving consumers more tangible experiences. Get them off of the screens. Is there an industry that's better suited for getting hands-on with things? We're literally eating the products that we make. So I think there's a real opportunity for the food industry to give consumers those types of experiences where we're getting off of social media and TikTok and, all the noise in our lives, and actually, like you said, roasting pumpkin seeds and eating it with their family. What a great experience.
Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to do this again in the future. Hopefully we can, come back to see where we're at in maybe half a year, couple months, and get your guys' input again. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Maeve Webster and Mike Kostyo monitor food trends at Menu Matters, where they track the connections between food service, retail, and CPG, translating cultural shifts into actionable insights. They also co-host the Mess Hall podcast, where they dive into big and sometimes messy questions facing the food industry, from consumer behavior to innovation and culture.
Thank you to our sponsor for this episode, CoDeveloper, your AI-powered co-scientist from IFT. To experience CoDeveloper's game-changing R&D capabilities for yourself, visit us online at codeveloper.ift.org and book your custom demo today.
And that wraps up this episode of Omnivore. Thanks again to all our guests and my colleagues at Food Technology. Omnivore is produced and distributed by the Institute of Food Technologists. If you enjoyed today's show and want to learn more about Food Technology Magazine or how to join the conversation by becoming an IFT member, visit ift.org/membership. For more in-depth discussion about innovation in the science of food, check out IFT's other podcast, Side Dish, on the News and Publications page of ift.org. If you have comments or suggestions for future shows, just send us an email. The address is editors@ift.org. For the entire team at Food Technology and IFT, I'm Bill McDowell. Thanks for listening, and join us again for our next episode.